Please.
Begin. Okay. Oh,
Y2K.
believe it or not, it's the end of the
Y2K.
year.
I got it. Y2K.
Yeah, that's it. Y2K.
Y2K. Yep.
Or did he find it for you?
No, it just came to me. Y2K. Yeah, where'd that go with the Y2K?
Well, we're still here.
Okay.
And it's almost 2020, which means we'll all be able to see well next year, right?
Right.
What that means? It will be Christmas in a few days. Hard to believe.
Well, it happens every year.
It does happen at the same time, too.
Yeah.
Why don't we celebrate?
No excuse for not being ready, because you had a whole year to get ready for it this year.
I noticed I read some of y'all's letters in the Santa, letters to Santa in the paper this week.
But because of the snowbound, to visit him, the shipments from the hill and all. And it was cold, so it must have been, well, it could have been November, January.
Okay, let's get started. There are not too many announcements, other than the announcements. Joe Dan has more announcements than I do.
Wow.
Yeah.
All I've got is that the Men in the Arts exhibit will continue until the 20th of December, which is today, or yesterday, so it's over. There's a concert, the last classical concert of the season is the 5th of January. And it's opera, so if you like opera, come to that.
When is that?
The 5th, it's a Sunday afternoon at 2:30.
2 o'clock?
2:30. 2 o'clock, the doors open. 2:30.
What does it cost to see that?
I have no idea. It's not that expensive. I'm going to read 3 Christmas poems. Because it's the season.
You're not going to sing them. You're going to.
I'm not going to sing, no, you don't want me to sing.
Okay.
Actually, we have a petition requesting that you sing.
Well, I hope not. I hope not, because whoever requested that has to have their head examined. The first one I'm going to read is by some guy named Tennyson, Alfred Lord Tennyson, who was born in 1809, for those keeping score. It's called In Memoriam.
One of the best.
The subtitle is Ring Out Wild Bells. Ring out, wild bells, to the wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty light. The year is dying in the night. Ring out, wild bells, and let him die. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring, happy bells, across the snow. The year is going, let him go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind. For those that here we see no more, ring out the feud of rich and poor. Ring in redress to all mankind. Ring out a slowly dying cause and ancient forms of party strife. Ring in the nobler modes of life with sweeter manners, purer laws. Ring out the want, the care, the sin, the faithless coldness of the times. Ring out my mournful rhymes, but ring the fuller minstrel in. Ring out false pride in place and blood, the civic slander and the spite. Ring in the love of truth and right. Ring in the common love of good. Ring out old shapes of foul disease. Ring out the narrowing lust for gold. Ring out the 1,000 wars of old. Ring in the 1,000 years of peace. Ring in the valiant men and free, the larger heart, the kinder hand. Ring out the darkness of the land. Ring in the Christ that is to be. Alfred Lord Tennyson. Okay. This is called Old Santa Claus.
Oh,
You may have heard this.
he's pretty old.
But this fellow was born in, I don't know when this guy was born. He was born, I know that. He knew that too.
That's good.
I never heard.
1779, this guy.
That's when Santa Claus was born?
No, that's when the guy who wrote the poem.
Oh,
Santa Claus is older than that. Old Santa Claus, with much delight, his reindeer drives this frosty night, o'er chimney tops and tracts of snow, to bring his yearly gifts to you. The steady friend of virtuous youth, the friend of duty and of truth, each Christmas Eve he joys to come, where love and peace have made their home. Through many houses he has been, and various beds and stockings seen, some white as snow and neatly mended, others that seemed for pigs intended. Where'er I found good girls and boys that hated quarrels, strife, and noise, I left an apple, or a tart, or wooden gun, or painted court. To some I gave a pretty doll, to some a peg top or a ball. No crackers, cannons, squibs, or rockets to blow their eyes up, or their pockets. No drums to stun their mother's ear, no swords to make their sisters fear, but pretty books to store their minds with knowledge of each various kind. But where I found the children naughty, in tempers rude, in temper haughty, thankless to parents, liars, swearers, boxers or cheats, or base tale-bearers, I left a long black birchen rod, such as the dread command of God directs a parent's hand to use when virtue's path his sons refuse. That was written by a fellow named Clement Clark Moore, who is most famous for this next thing I'm going to read and last that I will read. First, a little preface to the poem. On December 23rd, 1823, a poem called A Visit from St. Nicholas was published anonymously in the Sentinel, which was a local newspaper from Troy, New York. This piece offered a different take on Santa Claus, a figure who was, until that time, traditionally depicted as a thinner, less jolly, horse-riding disciplinarian, a combination of mythologies about the British Father Christmas, the Dutch Sinterklaas, and the 4th century bishop, St. Nicholas of Myra. But the poem in the newspaper printed a different picture. It gave Santa 8 reindeer, and even named them. It described a Santa who could magically sneak in and out of homes via chimneys, and it created the venerated, cheerful, chubby icon that is ever present in holiday cards, movies, television shows, and malls everywhere. The poem, of course, is now known as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," after its famous first lines. 13 years after it was published, Clement Clark Moore took credit for its authorship, though his claim to the poem is now in question. Many believe the poem was actually penned by New York writer Henry Livingston. And now for those of you that have never heard the whole thing complete, I'm going to...
Henry who?
Henry Livingston, like Dr. Livingston, but I don't think it was the same. Dr. Livingston, I presume. Anyway, this is A Visit from St. Nicholas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama, in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away all. as dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink in his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to work, and filled all his stockings, then turned with a jerk. Laying his finger aside to his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew, like the down of a thistle. And I heard him explain, ere he drove out of sight, Merry Christmas to all. To all, good night.
I've heard that somewhere.
I read that to all my kids at Christmas.
Where was your Santa hat this year?
My Santa hat is sitting over in my shop. I've been here all day. I kept forgetting to put it on. So I apologize for not wearing my Santa hat. I yield the floor.
I have two poems. Well, let's see, how could I start this off? Doc and I was at Whispering Pines last Monday night. We did hobos, we dressed up as hobos, acted like a hobo. We just didn't go catch the train. It was all in fun, so I thought I'd do my two renditions of a hobo. Doc, you go ahead and get dressed.
I didn't bring more wardrobe.
Okay. My first one's called The Hobo. I will long remember when hobos came around. They walked along the railroad tracks and slept along the ground. They stopped at certain houses. 'Tis said they marked the gate to beg a bite. If you were lucky, they would work for what they ate. If Dad was home, they'd sit a while. Now many tales I've heard about their many journeys, believing every word, 'twas usually a tale of woe. No family took care if they wore ragged clothing and never cut their hair. Yes, they had many stories why they'd taken to the trail, but they kept a watch for lawmen, for vagrants got thrown in jail. Although they lived along the road, they didn't look too unclean, though I recall once Mom shampooed us kids with kerosene. There was one drifter who'd stop by our gate year after year. We couldn't help but wonder about him. When one fall he didn't appear, it's been a long time since a hobo wandered down our lane. But he's back there in many mirror near the whistle of the train. I guess when they did this, they just did, I think that was the end of it. Yeah. Because it has the person that wrote this was William Arnold Lopez. And then my second one that I did, well, yeah, it's called The Big Rock Candy Mountain. Doc, go get your guitar. One evening as the sun went down and the jungle fire was burning, down the track came a hobo hiking and he says, Boys, I'm not turning. I'm headed for a land that's far away, beside the crystal fountain. So come with me, we'll go and see the Big Rock Candy Mountain. The Big Rock Candy Mountain is a famous old hobo poem.
That's not all of it.
There's also a very famous song that Burl Ives made famous way back.
Yeah, well, it's the same one.
Yeah.
It was recorded by a number of people before Burl Ives did. I think, but you only read a verse or so of it.
All right, who's next?
Next. Don's next.
Doc said it was me.
Everything okay, Ken? You like you're moving slow.
Cold weather, my phone's not working so good. Quiet later, I'm not gonna do that right now. I think this first little poem I got is just simply entitled December. And I think Donna must have wrote it because she found it and gave it to me, and it's not accredited to anybody, so I'm gonna assume she wrote it. It says December. All the months go past, each is like a guest. December is the last, but December is the best. Each has lovely things and each one is a friend, but December brings Christmas at the end. I guess that's why they think that was a little bit better. Another one here says the author is King James. See what you think of it. Why do the bells ring? Why do the bells of Christmas ring? Why do little children sing? Once a lovely shining star, seen by shepherds from afar, gently moved until the light made a manger's cradle really bright. There a darling baby lay, pillowed soft upon the hay, and its mother sung and smiled. This is the Christ, the Holy Child. Therefore, bells for Christmas ring, and therefore, little children always sing. That's not, was that you? No, King James wrote that, she said. I think that was from the scripture mostly. And this one right here, I kind of wrote myself, but I credit it to anonymous, okay? When the first snowflakes begin to come down, and the winds whistle sharp, and the branches turn brown, I won't mind the cold, though it numbs my fingers, for it brings the time nearer when Santa Claus comes. Merry Christmas.
You say that's original?
Beg your pardon?
Did you say that was an original poem?
For the most part, yeah. I stole some of the words. I don't want to be like some of the guys that plagiarize all of them.
More than 50% yours?
Yes. You guys gonna recognize this one. This was written by Randy Owens. Randy Owens,
Alabama.
the lead singer for Alabama, right?
Yeah.
It's called Christmas in Dixie. I sang this Thursday night. I like it so much. Dixie is where I grew up, and the headquarters for the Alabama band was only 20 miles from where I grew up in a place called Fort Payne, Alabama. You're familiar with that, I know. That was only about 22 miles east of where I was born over in Georgia. But it says, by now in New York City, there's snow on the ground. And out in California, the sunshine's falling down. But maybe down in Memphis, Graceland's all in lights. And in Atlanta, Georgia, there's peace on earth tonight. Christmas in Dixie, because it's snowing in the pines. Merry Christmas from Dixie to everyone tonight. It's windy in Chicago and the kids are out of school. But there's magic in Motown because that city's on the move. From Jackson, Mississippi, all the way to Charlotte, Carolina, all across the nation, it's a peaceful Christmas time. Christmas in Dixie, it's snowing in the pines. Merry Christmas from Dixie to everyone tonight. And from Winnsboro, Texas, Merry Christmas to you. And in their lyrics they say, thank you, God bless you, good night, and Merry Christmas. And see, I thought I had just one more piece here. Oh, I think I'll just let it be good for tonight. Thank you very much.
It's a Christmas poem, but it's cute. And it's by Shel Silverstein.
Oh, no.
So Ken didn't want to read it. He thought it was too childish, so okay. I made myself a snowman, as perfect as could be. I thought I'd keep him as a pet and let him sleep with me. I made it some pajamas and a pillow for his head. Then last night it ran away, but first it went to bed.
You got one more?
It's in German. To knock the bike over, you gotta buy it.
Oh, that's right, I'm trying to. Well, it's the holiday season and all that, and this is a little food for thought, and I have a Christmas poem, but this was called The Train. At birth, we boarded the train and met our parents, and we believed that they always traveled by our side. As time goes by, other people will board the train, and they will be significant in our siblings, friends, children, and even the love of your life. However, some station, our parents will step down from the train, leaving us on this journey alone. Others will step down over time and leave a permanent vacuum. Some, however, will go so unnoticed that we don't realize that they vacated their seats. The train ride will be full of joy, sorrow, fantasy, expectations, hellos, goodbyes, and farewells. Success consists of having a good relationship with all the passengers, requiring that we give the best of ourselves. The mystery to everyone is we don't know at which station we ourselves will step down. So we must live in the best way, love, forgive, and offer the best who we are. It's important to do this because when the time comes for us to step down and leave our seat empty, we should leave behind beautiful memories for those who will continue to travel on the train of life. I wish you all a joyful journey. I like that.
Thank you, Donna.
Is that original?
That was not my original. I wish
Somebody's-
it was.
Somebody's original.
It has a lot of good thoughts, and they're very well put, I thought.
Yeah.
This was by Linda Duchat.
Do what?
Duchat. D-O-U-C-E-T-T. Duchat. It's French, okay, for Duchat. This is called The Eve Before Christmas. This follows up with Thus, the eve before Christmas, I left it too late. The shelves were all bare. Oh, why did I wait? I swore I'd shop early. I clearly remember. And be done with it all by the 1st of December. But now here I am with picked over stock. The boxes are all crumpled and the marble knockoffs. Sweaters too big, slippers too small. The pushing and the grabbing. Get me out of this mall. I will stop at the drugstore and purchase a card
and fill it with money, why make life hard? It always fits and suits everyone's taste. No need to wrap it. There's just a waste. But should you not like it, dear, have no fear. If you'd like to return it, my pocket's right here. That's it. How much is the bike today, Conrad?
25 cents.
25 cents.
For the bike?
Uh-huh.
You want to buy the bike? For you, 2,500 for you. It normally retails for 5,000.
If you'll start it up, I might be interested.
Does it work? Single with the hook place, right?
Okay, Conrad said I'd probably have more announcements than he does. Or maybe I do. I have a couple. But I want to say, first of all, you know, Jill is running the video. Conrad does it sometimes. It depends on where I'm sitting. But I always ask Doc to do the stills, and he does a really great job. You know, I mean, he gets a lot of angles. I mean, that's why he's moving around. He knows to do that instinctively. You know, I didn't tell him to do that. I do tell some of the people to do that at Tenny Chapel when I yield the camera. But they don't have to tell Doc. Doc knows and knew from the instant that I gave him the camera years ago when we started this. You know, he gets all kinds of angles, and usually I get a good, one of them helps me out a great deal on the thumbnail for the video. Now, I don't know how many of you noticed it, but on the video for November, which just went out in the last couple of days, the thumbnail was he zoomed in and made a close-up of my bolo tie, which also showed a little bit of the shirt and my turkey neck.
Turkey neck.
So, I mean, that was the photo, you know, one of the photos. And I looked at that, and the more I looked at it, the more I liked that. And so that was the actual thumbnail photo, and then I took one of each of the headshots of the poetry readers and inserted them into it. So, you know, it looks like that they've been dropped in there, which is kind of what you do when you're using, the program I use is called Movie Maker. There's a whole bunch of different programs you can use to make videos. I use Movie Maker. I've been using it. It's the only one I've ever used, so if I ever have to change, it's going to be a big learning curve. But anyway, and so when you look at the thumbnail for the video, and you know, if it comes to you on a link that I send you, I try to send all of you the link. If you look, the only thing you see really is the thumbnail. And then when you click on the link, and then it takes you to the video, and it opens, and you see that. But I just want to say, you know, that Doc has keen instincts, what I would call artistic instincts for still photos. You know, often it's a treat to look to see, you know, what the stills that he gets, no matter what the circumstances and whatever. So thank you, Doc, for being not only artistic poetically, but photographically too.
I'll give you 20 when we leave.
Something about the word steal that appeals to me. We had a steal one time back in our younger days.
I have one poem that I'm going to read tonight, and it is by my best friend from WHS, again, Bartow Fanning. I still haven't finished reading all of his poetry. Some of you know there have been times when I have featured poems of his. He and I used to write poetry and prose, short story fiction, mostly science fiction at the time, when science fiction was kind of new, a new genre really, and we were caught up in it, and we were writing it, and our followers and our classmates, several of them that hung around with us, would read especially our science fiction stories, and comment on them. either good or bad, you know, give it a rating and that sort of thing. Bartow and I still write a little bit of everything, and he sent me this collection of some of his poetry actually a year or two ago, and I've been off and on reading from it. But you know, this poem that I'm going to read tonight is one that reminds me, some of you will remember a few months ago, myself, Doc, and Conrad were invited to be a part of the Cowboy Poetry program at the Art Center and Autumn Trails, simultaneously in October 19th, I think it was. And so we were, you know, we prepared for that. And by the way, after that was over, you know, Jill was filming, helping me film that. I filmed some of it, she filmed some of it. And I put it all on a video and sent y'all, all of you, the link to it, just as if it were a regular Live Poet Society thing, which it was not, but we were all members of the Live Poet Society, so I sent it to you. And maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, but it's on there, you know, and if you didn't get it or didn't see it, didn't click it or whatever, you can still find it on my YouTube channel. Just say Winnsboro Cowboy Poetry event and put the date October 19, 2019, and you'll be able to find it. But I call myself in there both a little bit of a cowboy poet and something more of a plowboy poet. And when I say, and when Bartow says plowboy, we're talking about mule-drawn plows. But like when we were growing up, that was all we had. You know, that there were maybe anywhere from 1 to 3 very progressive farmers in my community who went to tractors while I was still living on the farm. But they were an extreme rarity at that time. Of course, later everybody went to tractors. But Bartow and I grew up plowing behind mules. And he wrote this poem called Judy and Jane. And that's the name of a team of mules that he plowed and drove, pulling wagons. You know, Bartow and I would, you know, our families would frequently go places in mule-drawn farm wagons, go to town in a mule-drawn farm wagon. That was not all that unusual back then. So this is Bartow Fanning. I need to do the announcements too. Tenny Chapel tomorrow night, 6:30. Be 90 minutes of free family music, entertainment, starting at 6:30, ending at 8. Sound man will be Kris Martinson, and it'll be listed your name too, not Doc. Anyway, Doc and Kris will be on the program as well. The free Christmas dinner this year. Yes, it's going to be happening. Tenny Chapel's been doing that since 2008. Free Christmas dinner come and go from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Also, if you're interested, on Christmas Eve, there'll be an 11 o'clock service at Tenny Chapel. If you're interested on Christmas Day, there'll also be an 11 o'clock service at Tenny Chapel. And there'll be different services, same pastor, as far as I know. I don't think there'll be a guest pastor over either one of those. And so 11 o'clock, the 24th and the 25th, a service. And then on the 25th, from 2 to 4, free Christmas dinner. And all of you are welcome and warmly invited to that. Okay, Judy and Jane, and I had fun reading this again. Back then, I was just a nubbin ranch hand with lots of chores to do. I was the one that hitched the team and curried them when we was through. Tansy and Reuben was our team, but they were not matched well at all. Tansy was a little mare, about 14 hands tall. Hitching up was mighty tough. Every darn thing went wrong. Tance's traces were too short, Reuben's way too long. The breast yoke and the wagon tongue didn't square up in the least. The tack I had to work with wasn't fit for man or beast. I was mortally ashamed when I had to drive this rig to town. Oh, I put on my happy face, tried not to let it get me down, but I sure wish we had more class. It was enough to make you cry. Folks would laugh, point their fingers at us when we drove by. Then one day, the boss brought home a matched pair of strawberry roans. They were sleek, fat, sassy, and they were just about full grown. These mares had flowing manes and silky tails, and an attitude to boot. Judy and Jane, we called the prancing beauties. Driving them was a hoot. We slicked the reins with neat's foot oil. We drug the traces through the sand. We polished the Hames brass turrets and re-dyed the belly bands. Then we painted the wagon box, greased the wagon wheels. We washed and shaved and combed our hair. Going to town had new appeal. Sitting on the wagon seat behind them darling roans, I'd grin from ear to ear. You would have thought I owned the world. And I did too, well, dang near. In my best commanding voice, I'd cluck, cluck, giddy up, gee-haw, whoa. I didn't need a black snake whip to make them ponies go. Folks now pointed at us with envy, and we had so much pride. They did just right up until the day Judy just up and died. We knew she was ailing, but there was nothing we could do. Closest vet's was 20 miles, too far, too late, too few. Judy stood there by the wooden fence, and she stood there all night. Her knees were locked, her head was bowed, her eyes had lost their sight. At sunrise, she just sighed, and then she died. Then she fell like a tree. She took down 20 yards of corral fence. It was an awesome sight to see. We couldn't let the buzzards have it, so we trussed her up with chains. Old Reuben drove her to the brush pile, where the arroyo scarred the plains. The brush was from the new ground we had grubbed back in the fall. A makeshift sagebrush arbor was her coffin and her pall. We stacked the brush high on her, like you'd build a big bonfire. We doused her with cola, and then we lit her funeral pyre. The blaze could be seen for miles. Smoke rose higher, higher. Passing neighbors offered condolences. One even said a prayer. Judy's faithful teammate, Jane, was never the same somehow. An old sodbuster bought her to pull his one-horse Kelly plow. Judy and Jane were our pride and joy, and their memory does not dim. I swear there will never be another team the likes of them. Amen. I think that's one of his best ever. Right. I just love it.
Yeah.
As we always close with a paragraph from how to read a poem, subtitle, and Fall in Love with Poetry by Edward Hirsch, starting a new chapter 3. How many years has it taken us to get to chapter 3? Title of the chapter is A Hand, a Hook, a Prayer. No, wait a minute. We read one of these. The first paragraph was last. I'm sorry. Here is the second paragraph. Poets have often taken waving as an emblematic gesture of the poem itself. The lyric as greeting, the lyric as farewell. I think of the final misunderstanding Stevie Smith anatomizes in Not Waving but Drowning. The playful goodbye of Wallace Stevens waving adieu, adieu, adieu. What John Ashbery terms the shield of a greeting in self-portrait in a convex mirror. I think of a bitterly cold Minneapolis morning, January 1972, when John Berryman climbed onto the metal railing of the Washington Avenue Bridge, made a gesture as if waving before plunging into the river to his death. I find jaunty dignity in the poetic of a distance recognized, established, and maintained in treating the poem as an act of waving. But I'm also struck by the urgency of poems that try to break down that distance to push past it. Into the second paragraph. You know, that word, that emphasis in that paragraph is on the word wave, using a poem as a wave, or a way of waving at something. You know, here's Bartow waving at this team of mules that he remembers with such poetic confidence. How they were so proud of that team of mules. You know, I think of our team of mules, you know, Bob and Betty. Actually, we had 2 teams of mules, just like Bartow did. One of our first team of mules to amount to anything was Bob and Betty. There was a soap opera on radio. There was no TV, of course, in those days. It didn't exist. But there were soap operas on radio. And one of them was called Bob and Betty, and it was, you know, their story. Some kind of soap opera stuff happened every day, and if you listened to that, you know, you kept up with it. So my folks bought this team from Arvin Newton, and he had named them Bob and Betty. He was one of the 3 farmers, progressive farmers, who went to tractors while most of us stayed with mules for several more years. And so he didn't need his team of mules anymore. And I think, you know, I don't remember for sure what they cost, but I think they were $20 a piece at that time, maybe more. Not any less than that, maybe more. But Bob and Betty, you know, Bob was a fairly gentle mule. Betty was a wild beast. You know, no one could ride Betty, and several people tried. You know, I saw several would-be Bronco busters get on Betty and get thrown sky high and hit the ground. I never had the courage to even try to ride Betty. Anyway, Bartow is waving to this team of mules. And I sometimes think of Bob and Betty, and then they were replaced later by another team. Bob died, and eventually Betty died. And you know, you can get by sometimes with one mule for a while, but there are certain things where you have to have two. To pull a wagon, you need two, and there's certain, you know, a riding cultivator, you'd have to have two mules for that. And certain big turning plows, you'd have to have two mules for that. So I can remember, you know, how when I would be out all day with no company, I would go in for lunch at the house, but come in, the whole day was really spent walking behind one or two of those mules. You know, and you know, Hank Williams used to say, when they would ask him about what inspired him, you know, how come he could write such memorable songs, you know, and why his songs were, you know, several levels above everybody else's. And he said, man, you've got to have walked behind a mule and smelled a lot of manure before you can write songs like a hillbilly. You know, that was one of the ways that he explained, you know, his talent for writing songs. But I spent many a day, all day, except for a break for lunch, you know, walking behind one or two mules. And you get to where you do talk to those mules, you know. It's like a conversation you're having. And if I had something that I had to memorize in school, for instance, you know, a poem that was required memory work, you know, I'd practice it with Betty or Bob, or both of them sometimes, you know, just as if they could hear me and whatever, and kind of try to fight the stage fright that I knew I was going to have when I was actually talking before the class. And so, you know, a boy or a man and his mule, you know, develop a very close, intimate kind of a relationship. And that's what Bartow's doing. He's waving, you know, in a proud way, those mules. And I was thinking of the song that I did in that cowboy poetry thing that Conrad and Doc and I were part of in October. And I did sort of an alternate version of Streets of Laredo. And to say alternate because it had a verse in it that most people don't normally use, but it seemed to fit in the case in that particular instance. And it's toward the end, it becomes the last verse if you use it. You know, and it's something like, as I walk, and it's like you darted on the song, and then you do this last verse, and it's kind of a repetition of the first verse, and it goes something like, as I walked out on the streets of Laredo, I gave a wild hoop as I waved you along. And it says, for you're a young cowboy, and this has been your song. And, you know, but that phrase in there, you know, this is a cowboy who's already laid out in burying clothes, and he knows he's about to die and all that, and he's talking about knowing he's going to die. And then the guy who's singing the song, you know, says, I gave a wild hoop as I waved you along, you know, and it was like, you know, you're the live guy, and here comes the guy dying, already dead, and you wave him along, and you give a wild, you know, as a cowboy, you give this wild hoop, and then you just wave him along. That's your way of paying tribute to this fellow cowboy. And so with that, I'll stop. Did you have anything else to tell us about your being the new manager?
Well, as you know, Nick Clark, who owns this building and the building that I was in, that I had ran the bookstore out of, he also owned the rest of the buildings on his block, two of which are vacant. This building used to open into the next building. In fact, that bookcase there and the one up front are actually doorways that lead into that building. The plan is early next year, probably starting in mid-January, we'll start renovating that building. Remove the bookcases so we open up into them, expand the art gallery into that building. And then the front office that Donna used to be in will become the new, the equivalent of Book and Tackle. Book and Tackle will cease to exist at the last day of this year. And it will just be the Culture Club Art Gallery and Gift Shop. And so that room will be dedicated to as many used books as I can stuff into it and the gifts that I currently offer. Eventually we'll get new lines of merchandise in there to keep it fresh. I'll be officially managing the gallery starting the first of the year. We'll be operating 6 days a week instead of 3, that we currently do. And we'll have a call for new artists to bring new artists in here. We're going to redecorate in here, going to brighten the place up and make it look more like a gallery than it does now. We're going to continue to have this open space here. My hope is to start bringing activities in the evenings, weekly. If you have any ideas, you want to contribute to that, I appreciate it. I want to have at least one night a week dedicated to some kind of literary thing, either poetry or other literary arts, perhaps bring some speakers in and that type of thing. I may dedicate one night just to dulcimer playing, because since I play the dulcimer, and I can be involved in that. It would be nice to, I don't know if you want to, if your Tuesday night jam, you want to relocate it into here or not, that's up to you. If you have a feeling that you might want to do that. But I want at least 4 nights a week, which would be Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday night is booked. We have an art class that's being taught in here on Thursday night. I'd like to have some activity every week, not just once a month, to bring more and more people into the downtown area.
It's going to be the hours.
That's to be determined, either 5 to 7, 6 to 8. Really depends on what's coming in and what people's availability is. Also, we're looking to bring activities during the day, classes, talks, do stuff with children, whatever. We're open to suggestions on that. We want to utilize the building as much as we can and bring as many, we want to bring more and more people downtown. And that's one way of doing it. It hasn't been officially announced. I've heard it third hand. Well, not really third hand. I've heard it first hand, but no dates have been given. The city does want to close Market Street to commercial traffic, wall traffic basically, and make it into a pedestrian area. It'll be like our little square, since we don't have a square. I don't have a timeline on that, but the thought is to have benches and trees and stuff. And the Long Republic property, the city wants to convert into a park where you can sit and they can have concerts on the stage there. When they'll announce that is unknown. They're apparently looking for financing to convert that property into a park. So these are coming up in next year. The hope is that the room up to the right here as you walk in, which will be the bookstore and gift shop, we'll start renovating that mid-January. And hopefully by the beginning of February, I'll start moving stuff over. What's the plan? I'm excited. That's all I have. Also, any suggestions you may have, I'll be happy.
What about Live Poet Society? Are we still going to be?
We're still on. We're still on the first Friday of the month. We will continue to do that. possibly we'll do Fridays for literary night, so that when we have that, it'll just be part of the schedule. And we'll do other things, other types of literary stuff, the other nights. It'll take a while to get all this stuff started, but that's my hope, is to do all that.
I understand the barrel house is moving possibly in January, is that right?
Well, last time I spoke to Nancy, she was talking probably the end of February. They aren't, we're not,
What's the rumor?
the Rooster Cafe on the corner is maybe closing at the end of the year, but I don't have that officially from them. I have that unofficially from another source. So there won't be any restaurants on Market Street anymore, except Leafy's will be the only restaurant in the immediate area. The Barrel House will be about 3 blocks from here. They're going to be just east of Tires Pro. There's some buildings over there that they
Yeah, that way.
that way.
Yeah.
Highway 11. They've been working on it now for about 6 months. So we'll still be able to get there fairly easily. Vic obviously is going to, if Rooster does close, he'll be looking for another restaurant to lease that space. He's still looking for someone to lease the Chico Vino building. Hopefully we'll get new restaurants in here in the future. That's what I got. That's all I have so far. I'll keep you updated. I'll keep you posted as I see.
So what is Vic's overall vision, you think? Is he wanting this to be, this Culture Club Art Gallery, once it's up to the speed that you've just talked about, is there'll be more of this kind of art on display for sale and
That
stuff?
is the hope, that we'll get more artists coming in. And I spoke to a photographic artist today about, he asked whether he could put smaller prints of his stuff at the gift shop, and I said absolutely. I suggested he do some local photography of the Winnsboro area. I've been begging artists for close to 10 years to do local art, paint local buildings, paint historic portions of some of the old homes and the churches and stuff.
You mentioned a gift shop just now. There is none now, is there?
Well, there's kind of a temporary one up front, which is the gift items that I offer in the blue building. I'm moving them over here.
So the idea is to have a bigger gift shop.
Well, it won't be bigger. It'll be a little smaller than the current space. It won't have as much room here.
Would it be consignment or what?
No. The gift shop, the art, if an artist brings stuff in, that'll be on consignment. But all the gift stuff, right now I own it. Eventually Vic will own it if we bring new stuff in. But we'll bring some lines of merchandise in to the gift shop as we find stuff. Mostly we look for handcrafted type stuff. We'd like to get, it's nice to find stuff that's made in this area. Unfortunately, it tends to be very expensive. And we want to be able to sell to, all price range. We don't want to price ourselves out of the market. We want people who come in just to look around to be able to take something home with them. And if we have all locally made things, by the time you mark it up for retail, it becomes heavily expensive.
Whose vision is most of this that you've been talking about? Is this mostly you or mostly Vic or a combination?
The art gallery is Vic. The gift shop is kind of a combination. Vic wanted somebody he could trust to run the gallery. Obviously, I can't run the gallery and run the bookstore at the same time because I don't have a clone that can do that. And so the suggestion was to consolidate both, but the primary emphasis for this space is the gallery. It was built as a gallery, and it's going to remain that. So I'm fortunate to be able to bring as much as I can of the old bookstore gift shop into this space. And I still won't be able to show all my books. I need a space. Well, it'd be a very large space to do that.
If you live long enough,
Well, you know, I've got to make a whole bunch of money. If we make a whole bunch of money here, so I become a rich person, I can go and build my own place and show and offer all my books. In the last, I've got already cataloged over 25,000 volumes. In the 3 or 4 days I've been over in this space, cataloging books I hadn't looked at yet, just in boxes. I'm almost at 1,000, and I haven't finished them yet. I'm still working on it. So I've got a lot of books. I can only display maybe 3,000 or 4,000 of my 26,000 books.
you feel excited?
Yeah, I do. With the renovation of the gallery and the expansion of it, assuming we can get good quality artists in here and increase our advertising and marketing, we're working on a whole new website now that'll be a little more, give a more positive look to the gallery and what we're doing here. We hope to start bringing people in from outside of the immediate area to come to the gallery. Obviously, we need new businesses in downtown. We've got some vacant space. We need to fill that space up with retail and with restaurants, so people, you know, have a destination to come to. It's hard to get them to come to a single entity in a little town. They have to have several things they can do here, not just come to the gallery. You know, if we were giving concerts like the Art Center is, they'll come to that, but the benefit of that long term is that 1 or 2 restaurants will make some money that night, but none of the shops will. We want to bring people to downtown that will spend money at our shops and go to our restaurants and see whatever points of interest we have here. So that's the long term. That's going to take a lot of marketing in order to bring people here. But I think that's what Vic has in mind for the long term. He's invested a lot of money in this place, in this town, with all of the properties he's purchased. And he hasn't done it just for fun. He wants, in the long run, he wants to make money. Like any businessman, he wants to get a profit. So I'm excited to be part of it. I hope we're successful. It's going to take a lot of work, but I think we can do it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and see you all in January.
Now, Vic, he sees some things like I do. I don't believe profit is a bad word, do you?
No.
Gotta be a little profit made if you're gonna keep it rolling.
And please eat the snacks, because if you don't eat them, they're going to go to waste.
I got 4 boxes of magazines out in my truck.
Oh, okay.
Never been looked at.
Never been looked at. Well, we'll take the